So welcome. My name is Laurel Walzak. I'm the assistant professor of RTA Sport Media, and I'm also the founder and the director of the Global Experiential Sport Lab. So thank you for being here this evening. We are really excited to present the Sport Women in Tech. And this is a wonderful opportunity that She's4Sports has brought forward to the GXS Lab in our partnership, and to have this incredible group of women speaking with us tonight on a topic that you're experts in your field, a very important field, the technology in sport. We're very thrilled. So the GXS Lab has been founded about a year and a half ago now, which is the intersection between scholarly work and industry practice. And so most of the research that we do is anything around branding, fans and audiences, with an it's more of an umbrella, but I was going to say an undercurrent of gender equity and diversity. And everything that we do touches upon gender equity. So hence it made a lot of sense for us to partner with Ianka and the She's4Sports brand. This is, I had a chance to meet Ianka about a year ago now. She spoke at one of our student events, and I learned a little bit more about her organization and about her as a person and as a woman who continues to give back to women in sport and is galvanizing women in sport and allies. So basically, everything that we do in the lab, we encourage a community of men and women to come together to move the agenda forward for women in sport. So thank you to those males that are in the room that are allies and are interested in hearing from experts in the field. And I'll use it as experts in the field. So you're coming here to hear from women, but by the way, they're women, but they're also experts in their field. I would like to introduce to you our fearless leader, and She's4Sports. And I've had an opportunity now to work with Ianka on quite a few of these panels, but also more strategically in some discussions that we had about the DNA of our relationship and our partnership with the lab and She's4Sports. And it's constantly about, Ianka has a vision that is about empowering women, collaborating with one another, providing opportunities to one another, and making sure that we're a community and we're supporting one another, as well as the men who are in our community and our allies. And this model is a model that we're seeing move the needle and impacting change. And we're going to continue to see that year over year. So Ianka, thank you so much for your vision and charging forward and leading the way. So those of you who don't know Ianka, let me give you a very brief bio. And I say brief because I can't possibly list all of the things that she has done and is doing. She is passionate about communications and empowering women and girls. She has combined her love of sport for over 12 years in communications and media relations experience. And with that experience, then she has launched She's4Sports. This organization gives women a larger voice in sports through digital content and events. And it is a Toronto-based network, that at some point I know will be also reaching globally if it hasn't already. This community right now, we've got 4,000 women and men in our community, and she's continuously trying to amplify and celebrate the contributions for women in sports. She's also provided strategic communication and media relations support to various organizations such as CBC, Manulife, the City of Ottawa, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and BMO, so large corporations in our country. Ianka is also an avid speaker who likes to raise awareness on diversity in sport, women in leadership, and women in entrepreneurship. She has participated in various women in sports events and panels across the city, and she's been featured on CBC Radio, Sportsnet, and multiple related podcasts. In 2017, Ianka was featured as one of 150 Black women making history in Canada for her work in She's4Sports. I think we should give you a round of applause for that. And this has to do with her story in Black Project, a joint initiative between CBC and how she hustles. Ayanka has a BA in English from York University and a diploma in broadcast television from Seneca College. So I'd like to introduce you to Ayanka Jess.
Thank you so much. I'm going to sit because these heels are not walk-in heels. But I did bring my running shoes with me for later. Laurel obviously highlighted a lot of the things that I was able to do. But when I think about our theme, International Women's Day, a lot of the things that I've done, I couldn't do it without the women around me in my life. So obviously, it makes me reflect on my mom. She's not here today, but she does come to some of our She's4Sports events. And one thing she told me when I was younger is you can be anybody you want to be. And at 5-6 years old, you're like, okay, I guess so. But it really resonates with you when you get older, because I felt like in my career, there's no limits. I'm just going to go after whatever I want to go after. And I think that passion has led to me launching She's4Sports, because I do meet a lot of women and a lot of people. I met someone yesterday at an event and they said they want to start their own content video company. And I said, well, start it. And they're like, well, how did you start She's4Sports? The hardest thing to do is to just put your finger on the green button and start something. So if any of you have sports projects or something that's burning, in a passion that you want to do, I would say as a, woman, just step up to the plate and do it. If you fail, you fail, right? Then you'll learn something, but don't hold back. And also, I think about close friends, like my friend Shauna here. We actually went to daycare together. So that's an inspirational woman in my life. And then, going through university and meeting, friends now who are, some of them I've worked with, some of them I haven't, but we're still keep in touch, and meeting phenomenal women like Laurel, who is the director of the GXS Lab, and women who are really championing, gender diversity in sports. It's a lot of work, and Laurel will tell you that. It's hard work sometimes as women. I feel like when we're trying to lead projects that have to do with equality, pay equity, it's like moving a big boulder up a hill, and sometimes you don't know if it's going to roll back on you, but you do it because it's the right thing to do and it has to be done. Women are still not getting paid the same as men across all sectors, and that has to change. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've launched She's4Sports in 2016. We started events in 2017. And one thing I'm going to do is, for those who don't really know too much about She's4Sports, I'm going to show you a quick little video so to get you up to speed. And then after that, I will introduce the panel.
Toronto Raptors assistant coach Brittany Donaldson was recently part of a panel here in Toronto put on by the organization She's4Sports. It aims at empowering girls and women when it comes to sports.
When I'm there, they'd say, okay, that's kind of different. Why is a woman sitting up here? They don't think you know anything about sports.
That is a common theme Ayanka Jess was hearing from women when it came to sports. They would tell her how men constantly overlook them because of their gender and wouldn't take them seriously. That's why she created She's4Sports.
So it was a combination of hearing those stories and myself feeling like, if you have a voice, doesn't matter, man or woman, child, whoever you are, and you want to engage in sports, you should be able to.
She's4Sports is a platform that features diverse women in sports, where they can share their stories.
We've had Hockey is Her at the Hockey Hall of Fame. We brought together 6 women in hockey. It was a diverse panel. And, Christine Simpson was on our panel from Sportsnet. And she says, I don't think I can ever recollect or go back and think of an all-female panel in hockey in Toronto.
Her platform just celebrated 4 years of showcasing women in sports, whether it be Raptors assistant coach Brittany Donaldson or the NFL's first female coach. Ayanka believes change is finally starting to happen for women in sports.
I think we're making small steps. And if we're pushing that boulder of gender diversity and we can continue pushing it up the hill, I think we're going to be in a good path.
Her movement has grown significantly over the last few years, but she's hoping to expand it even further.
I think what I would really love to see in the future is more being done with girls in sports. We know girls drop out of sports once they hit puberty, and I'd love to be in a space where either I'm leading an initiative or collaborating with another organization to encourage girls to stay in sports.
The Toronto Raptors are taking on the Golden State Warriors tonight for the first time since the Raps won the good old Larry O'Brien last year in Oakland. Now, fun fact about tonight's game, that if the Raptors win tonight, they will clinch a playoff spot, which shouldn't be too hard considering the Warriors have only won 14 games this season.
First, we're going to call up April Whitzman. Since April was young, she knew she wanted to work in sports. Her path to getting there, however, was quite unique. Parts of her windy path included being an intern and mascot for an independent baseball team in London, Ontario, and being a contestant on a Major League Baseball reality TV show. She'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get into the talk. In New York City. After that, April landed the position she coveted for as long as she could remember, running the digital marketing for the Toronto Blue Jays. That said, her current role, leading the marketing and partnerships department at Rover, has been her true dream job. Working for Rover, an awesome sports tech platform, April's able to help over 50 different teams across the multiple sports leagues build incredible mobile app campaigns that helps teams sell tickets, increase partnerships, and most importantly, engage their fans. Thank you for joining us, April. And on a side note, April was on our Women at Bat panel that we did last year, or the year before last year. The time just keeps on going. And we held it at the Rogers Center, and April was on the panel with 4 other dynamic women in baseball. So she's 2 for 2 today.
I'm back.
Jessica Hartwick. Jessica Hartwick is the founder of Heart and Stride Hockey Development, Inc., which she launched in 2017. She has a passion for hockey and entrepreneurship and is a former varsity hockey player at Ryerson. After graduating, she was drafted to the Canadian Women's Hockey League on the Markham Thunder, where they won the Clarkson Cup in 2018. Through her company, Jessica uses a skating treadmill to train and develop players of all ages and skill levels. Outside of her being an entrepreneur, Jessica is also the assistant coach of the Scarborough Sharks Midget AA, is it AA? That's how you say it, AA team, and works at Ryerson University as a liaison officer. She has a bachelor in arts and contemporary studies with an option in English and a minor in history. Thank you for joining us. Camille Wallace is a digital marketing professional who is passionate about positively influencing the lives of future generations. In her current role at the Canadian Olympic Committee, Camille leads digital partnerships. She focuses on monetizing Team Canada's digital properties and developing strategies that leverage digital to provide value to sponsorship deals. She's also a part-time social media and content strategy instructor. She's born and raised in Toronto. Woot woot. Camille is committed to giving back to her community. She currently volunteers with Girls E-Mentorship as a mentor to youth who face multiple layers of barriers. And last but not least, Arwina Mogul. Arwina Mogul is an award-winning entrepreneur who has been featured in CBC, Flair, and Polygon. Arwina is the CEO of BeamGG, a Canadian tech startup that's looking to build software for the esports and gaming industries. Prior to BeamGG, Arwina worked as a consultant for the world's first esports theme park and had her first esports startup acquired, and worked for the region of Peel for over 5 years. So this is our wonderful panel. So I know you guys are a powerhouse panel, so I'm just gonna start quickly with, tell me quickly about your journey into sports and tech and how that all started. And I'll start.
Starting with me?
Yes.
Okay. So my path to sports was probably different than most. I grew up playing sports, probably like many of our panelists. I was the only girl on the boys' baseball team, and I kept telling my mom I was going to be a baseball player, and eventually when that didn't pan out, I told her I was going to go work for the Montreal Expos. And when that team folded, I said I was going to go work for the Blue Jays, and each time my parents always supported me but kind of laughed. I was a small town girl from a small town in New Brunswick, and it just wasn't something that seemed feasible. Fast forward a few years, I did 2 degrees, and after 8 years of university, I told my parents I was going to move to London, Ontario to work for a baseball team for free. So that definitely went really well with them. So I went and did the job, and about halfway through the season, the team folded. So that went really well as well. And during the job itself, so I was doing marketing, I was doing some social media, and I was also doing some photography. But most of the job, I was in the mascot. So I was a dog. So if you need a mascot, I can do that too.
With social media skills.
Fast forward a few more years, there was a Major League Baseball had what was called the MLB Fan Cave, and it was around for a few years. It was on MTV, and basically it asked fans across North America to apply to be on this reality TV show where all you have to do is watch baseball and engage fans. It's like, I can do that. I have a social media following and I love baseball. I don't know. Does anybody know how many games every game of the season is? Any guesses? Nobody. 2,643 games. And during this, people were being eliminated, but at the same time, players were coming to visit us every week. So because New York has an away team, or a National League team and an American League team, there was players coming all the time. And our job was to basically come up with content for these players. So we took Jose Bautista one time to the golf range, and he just hit baseballs for hours, and that's the best day of my life. But again, fast forward, I then wanted to work for the Jays, and it took a few years. It took a lot of applying. I thought I'd come back from the baseball job being like, wow, I am going to get this job. It took 4 years. But I got it. And it was amazing. I was running all the digital for the Jays, so social, email, Twitter. I sent the first tweet to fans, the first two-way communicational tweet, and I feel like I slightly transformed that, even though I'm no longer there now, but that was a lot of fun. Being a fan and having that power to like make a fan's day was probably one of the best experiences of my life. When that ended, there's a long story, but that ended. I then started at Rover, and at the time, Rover is and I'll get going so you can start soon. I'm sorry, but so Rover is a sports tech platform. Simply put, it helps sports teams and/or brands to create app content in their apps. So essentially, let's pretend the Blue Jays wanted to create app content today in their app. That take a long process. It takes about a few weeks. You have to code it, you have to come up with it, you have to design it, and then you have to launch it. It's a bunch of steps. But with our platform, with Rover's platform, you're able to design it all in the browser and launch it almost instantaneously. So it's basically transforming, it's making your app another tool for partnerships and for fan engagement. So when I first started at Rover, we had about 5 or 6 teams, and now we're over 50, including the COC. So they're clients. So yeah, so there we go. But so that's my long story into sports. I'm sure I'll go into other things about it, but
Everyone to get like just a briefer. Like
that wasn't really brief, but
your path is, and we're gonna talk about that question. A lot of women that work in sports and tech, they didn't just start in sports and tech after school. There was a lot of different pathways. And some of our panelists, I know Jessica and Camille, you guys are athletes or former athletes. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. So you'll notice that everybody's path isn't always that straight. So for anybody thinking of getting into the sports and tech world, you'll hear that maybe you got to twist a little bit just to get there, which sounds like life, right? So Jessica, do you want to talk a little bit about, being an athlete at Ryerson, and then the blade technology, and then the treadmill, and how you sort of got that and then started your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and keep mine brief, but no promises. So so I started playing hockey when I was 5 years old. I had an older brother who was playing hockey, so I wanted to be like him. I started out as a figure skater, and I was really good at that and doing competitions. But then every time we were at the hockey rink, I told my mom I wanted to play hockey. So that was that. Ever since then, I've been playing hockey. I started out at Ryerson in 2011 as a student. It was our first year ever having a women's hockey program at a varsity level when I came in at 2011. So I actually grew up in Brampton, and Brampton has a really strong women's hockey foundation out there. And so I came from a very strong winning team. We won provincials a lot, we won a lot of things. And in my first year at Ryerson, we won 1 game. So to learn how to lose when you're 18 years old is really tough. And it's not necessarily how to lose, but it's just a matter of, going through the process of, we didn't have the Maple Leaf Gardens, or Old Maple Leaf Gardens, the Mattamy Athletic Center at the time. So we would travel to George Bell from campus, which is not close. And so to go to the practice every day, go to games every day, knowing that, we were competing and working hard, but we were a team of brand new players playing against teams that were playing with each other for 3 or 4 years at a time. So, it was a tough process for sure. But it made us stronger, absolutely, both as players and as teams. And then going on into my career at Ryerson, in my second year, we brought through the Mattamy Athletic Center, and inside there, we added the skating treadmill. The person that was running it before, her name was Vanessa Stratton, and I worked alongside her for the next 4.5 years on the treadmill. I was able to be a part of kind of the beginning process of that company. It was called Ryerson Skate Training, and I kind of became her guinea pig on the treadmill. So I was the one who came up with some of the drills and helped her through it. And so all of the programming that we created together, I was the one that was physically doing it. So it was a very exciting learning process for myself, as well as my first time ever being on a treadmill and being a part of some of that technology. So it was really interesting, absolutely. And I instantly fell in love with it. So over the next few years, I was continuing to work on it. When I graduated, I became a full-time member of the program and helped with some of our summer camps, March break camps, etc. And Vanessa ended up leaving, so I actually took over the program. And unfortunately, it was only truly benefiting our hockey program. So our athletics department made the tough decision that they were going to be closing the program. So they offered me the opportunity, if I wanted it, to take the treadmill and see what I could do with it. So I took that for sure. And I, 2 years ago, started my company, Heart and Stride Hockey Development. So I went out with actually a friend of mine from the men's hockey team who had just graduated and was a real estate agent. I said, hey, can you help me find anywhere for this treadmill? So we drove around, and probably for about 2 months straight, we went to a lot of different places. Ended up in Scarborough, and you can only imagine there was some pockets of Scarborough that were not so great, and we'd pull up and turn around right away. But it was a learning process for both of us. And yeah, I opened my doors in December 2017. 2 months later, I won the Clarkson Cup with the Markham Thunder, and was playing professionally while I was starting this business, and also still working full-time at Ryerson. I was actually on the switchboard at the time, which is just kind of the main line for the university, answering general questions. But yeah, so that was kind of how I got to the business side of it. The name, for anyone that's interested, was my last name is Hartwick, and I wanted to keep my name somehow. So I wanted to incorporate it into my business name. So I use the word heart, and stride is something that I believe is the heartbeat of every great hockey player. So I tried to use a little play on words with that. And so that's where the name came from. And that was pretty much my story.
I like it.
Yeah.
And Camille, can you talk a little bit about, what you're doing at the Canadian Olympic Committee through digital partnerships?
Sure. So I'll touch a little bit on how I ended up in sports in general. So when I was younger, I actually didn't play organized sports because I didn't come from an athletic family. So I didn't really grow up playing any sports. But then when I was in elementary school, thanks to track and field day, I realized that I was actually pretty good at running. So that eventually led me to the University of Windsor to compete in track and field and go to school there as well. And I had no aspirations of really working in sport at all. I was studying international relations and development with a minor in history and gender studies. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to go to law school. And as I was going through my university courses, I realized I actually don't really like any of my law-related classes at all. So this is really great. But at the time, I think I was really fortunate because my head coach got me a job at the athletic department. And I was working in the marketing department, writing recaps for alumni. And I was like, yo, this could actually be a really great thing to do. If I could just work in sport, I could kind of still be associated with the sports world and then also make money. So I started thinking about what my skills were, and that eventually led me to apply to some jobs in the sports industry. And I ended up working at Special Olympics in games logistics. So I'm actually not super organized when it comes to planning a trip or anything like that, but here I was planning training camps for athletes, calling different vendors, and I was like, I'll figure it out. So that was a really great experience, and it kind of led me to think, okay, Camille, you kind of achieved this one feat of working in sports. What would you really want to do? And at the time I was like, I'm working for Special Olympics and I really love it, but I think I actually want to work for the Canadian Olympic team. So then I ended up doing a 1-year post-grad kind of in corporate communications and PR. And that kind of led me to figure out that I really enjoyed social media. So I did an internship at the COC once upon a time, and then kind of got my feet in the door that way, worked in an agency, and eventually came back. So then now I work on the digital team, which was the team that I interned in long ago. And I went from working in content, so everything from writing articles to publishing email newsletters to working on social media and engaging with fans, to kind of my role, which kind of blends digital partnerships together. So it works with working with each of our marketing partners on how their sponsorship comes to life through digital. So that was a really cool opportunity. And then I recently had the opportunity to join Canadian Women in Sports Board of Directors. So that was really great because I finally got the opportunity to marry two things that I'm really passionate about, which are sports and equity, gender equity. So those were two really great opportunities for me to kind of marry both of them together. So I feel pretty lucky. And that's my story.
See, everyone's path is not that straight path, you know, and
Yeah.
you kind of find your passion at some point. Arwina, do you want to touch on sort of your journey to sports and tech?
Sure. So mine is also a little bit different. So I didn't grow up here. I was born in the Philippines and I grew up in Hong Kong. So over there in that area of the world, sports is not really, the primary focus. I actually still play basketball now with my fiance and our friends. It's really expensive renting a basketball court, by the way. But so essentially that is the story. Like I grew up in Hong Kong. I immigrated here. And, when you're the new kid in school and you're in high school, it's not a fun story. So I did spend a lot of my time playing video games. So that actually kind of sparked the interest in video games at that age. And when I went to university and college, I took up social sciences because I said, I want to help people. How do I do that? So I took a program all about helping people. And then I graduated, got a job with the government. And then I said, I don't really like doing this. So because of that, I actually started to do my own thing. Like as a side hustle, I volunteered for the world's, most famous esports companies called ESL Gaming. And then I also started working on my own freelance projects. I started working with Logitech, AMD, held my first ever event at TIFF. And since then, the word just got out. I got hired to do consulting work for the world's first esports theme park. This was back in 2016. After a year, I came back to Toronto because I said, I'm going to do this. I want to work for myself and make money for myself. So I started my company, Beam.gg, and it's been this whole wild ride ever since.
See, all these great women who just said, I'm going to do it. Like, you were saying working for the Jays, you really wanted to work there. It took you 4 years. And then, you just never know when it's going to happen. But I think if you plug away at it, it will happen. I want to touch a little bit about fan engagement. There's a lot of statistics coming out now that show that, women are online. They're contributing to sports conversations. But that's still not normalized in traditional sports media. So can you talk a little bit about, do you want to go first or do you want me to pick someone else?
No, it's fine.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, how Rover is engaging female sports fans and sort of looking at how sports are trying to tap into other segments in terms of women?
Sure. So what we're seeing today is, every fan is on social on some platform. I still haven't figured out TikTok myself, but I know some people really like it. I like Twitter, but that's just us, right? Yeah, that's okay. But essentially, teams are trying to find new ways to engage their fans, and they're trying to find new ways to get data out of their fans so that they can better target their fans. They're trying to get away from the look at this pink sequin jersey for fans and instead trying to figure out what exactly myself as a 32-year-old woman living in Toronto wants to see, wants to have. What Rover does and what other teams are doing. So oftentimes we're seeing that all across social media. We're seeing whether it's the partnership side, partners want to find new ways to come up with creative content, engaging content, but at the same time make it sponsored. They don't want to just slap their logo on something. They want it to be engaging to both fans, their female fans and their male fans. What Rover enables teams to do is to take that into the app. So the interesting thing is a lot of teams don't know we exist. And if they do, they're probably using us. So the blessed thing about Rover is that we're enabling teams to now take everything they can do on social and now bring it into mobile or even create new partnerships or new fan engagement on mobile. So now teams are able to better target, okay, now I know that April is in Toronto because I can see that data. She'll probably want to see, I know she's not coming to the game today, so she doesn't need that ticket push if the team's not in Toronto. If I am in Toronto, then maybe I do want that ticket push. But they're able to use that data and better target fans that way. So I think that's where the future is. It's finding ways, and it's no longer just being like, it's Mother's Day, let's put a bunch of flowers everywhere, but instead finding ways 365, 7 days a week to better target fans. And that's what Rover is able to do. So again, when I worked at the Jays, we still have that priority, put the fan first. Again, we created that two-way communication, try to make the fans feel like they had a voice, they're being heard. And that goes with men and women. You know, the first time that I sent a GIF to a fan, or a GIF, whatever y'all want to say, I say GIF. The first time I sent it, they said, oh my gosh, they hired a new male intern. So one, I wasn't an intern, and two, I'm obviously not male. So, but it's no longer the case now. That was several years ago, but now those walls are starting to be broken down. In football, which used to be very male dominated, the fans there are 40-60. So it's still 40% female. But the people running them, the digital teams, are 60-40. So 60% of NFL teams right now are being run by women. And I think that's really powerful.
That's amazing. I want to touch on that because, I also still don't feel like, from the stories I hear from women who are in leadership positions or running campaigns or running sports and tech programs, that they do get the respect that they should be getting. And Arwina, I want to ask you about that in the esports space. I had a conversation with you, obviously, with all of you before you came here. And we touched on just, when women are, representing this industry and we step into a room for a meeting, it's still not normalized that, we are the founders or we are the person leading this campaign. So how do you deal with some of that climate?
It's an internal speech with myself before a meeting. I kind of talk to myself and say, I'm going to make this client so much money. So that hypes me up. I'm gonna walk in there and talk my game and tell them our experience as a company, my personal experience, being in esports and gaming, and the unique skills that I have to make this successful. So I try not to even think about it. But there has been instances where people repeatedly ask me where Arwina is, because they think Arwina is this male CEO.
You're sitting at the table in the meeting room and they're going, well, where's Arwina?
And then I usually say, I'm Arwina. Nice to meet ya. So I think it's just, just being confident. And like I said, that's my trick. Like my trick is talking to myself and, having that affirmation that, I will help this client. I will make them a lot of money and they're going to be satisfied with it, and gender doesn't have to do anything with it.
Jessica, when I was preparing for this, I did read that 13% of women in small businesses are in the STEM space: science, technology, engineering, and math. And that number is very low. But, you're obviously in that, a small business owner who launched, more of a sports and technology company. Can you talk a little bit about, were there any challenges starting the company or any barriers that you faced? I know some of the things I read was that women don't always have the same access to capital or, investors or, mentors and supporters when they're starting their businesses. Did you face any challenges?
Yeah, for sure. I think that when it comes down to small businesses, it's tough for anyone to start a business. And I think that for women, we feel a little bit more pressure because there aren't always the same resources available as there are to females as there are to male counterparts. And that would be strong in the sport of hockey for sure, simply because we don't have the same availability even at a younger age. For example, there's no pathway for women truly in something like a professional sport in hockey. Exactly. For example, we don't have a league currently to play in. And so when it comes down to it, male counterparts, they grow up and they have the chance of potentially being drafted to something like the OHL and then the NHL and they have that direct pathway, whereas we don't have that exact path that we can kind of achieve or aim to achieve other than playing at something like the Team Canada level. And when you think about that, sure, that's a possibility, but that's one team, whereas something like the NHL and the OHL are multiple teams. So there's a lot more opportunities for them there. So the funding aspect of a lot of NHLers will start things like businesses, or they'll go into coaching after, or they'll make so much money that they can afford to buy a team afterwards and become the GM, right? Whereas like we don't have that aspect. So especially for women in sport, you'll see a lot of really small companies who are just running on ice sessions, or just running, you know, team practices. But there's not a lot of women in the bigger part of it, whether it be a full company, like having and owning something. So I think that for me, I had to take that leap in terms of, truthfully, I didn't really think about it too much. And I think that that's a good thing. It worked out in my favor. Whereas I just knew that I was passionate about something and I was good at something. And I had that brave step of, I knew I had the right support system in place. And even if I wasn't able to get the funding that I needed elsewhere, I could get it within, from my own self accomplishments and what I was able to do. But that's hard to kind of push on other people who maybe are going to think a little bit more rationally about what they're about to do. Whereas I just kind of was like, no, I think I can do this. But so yeah, I am of that 13% who are willing to take that risk. And then it's just a matter of finding ways to get that funding, to get that opportunity to women who are maybe a little bit too skeptical to start doing something like that.
And Camille, I just want to ask you a little bit about, on the topic of just balance and normalizing, the fact that women are in these leadership roles, normalizing the fact that there are female athletes out there doing great things. How are you incorporating that sort of gender diversity into the partnerships and the digital space that you work in?
I think I'm really fortunate to work in sports and work for a team that actually has both males and females on their roster. I think that makes it really easy to engage our partners in both male and female athletes, and it's something that I think is really important. So there might be certain partners or certain activations where they have certain athletes in mind, or they're looking for a story. And even with that, you might only hear a certain type of story. It might be the really big names that you've seen on television, and it might be the really big medal hopefuls that you've kind of heard about all the time. But I think what's really unique in my role is I get the opportunity to kind of tell some athlete stories that might not normally have their stories told. So it's a really great opportunity to highlight some athletes who might not get that name recognition like some of the bigger names, and to be like, you know what, there's a really great story that ties into your brand. There's a really great story that relates to what you want your consumers to feel. And it's with this really great athlete that you might not have heard of, and being able to kind of put that at the forefront and kind of shine the spotlight on some athletes who don't normally get the big stories and the big video series on TV has been really great. And I think it's a really unique opportunity to be able to put female athletes or athletes from diverse backgrounds kind of in the spotlight. And it's really easy to do because we do have a lot of really great females and a lot of really great athletes from all across Canada. But I do think it's important to actually make a conscious effort to highlight and tell those different stories.
And, I'll segue into emerging trends. We talked about women being, obviously, people are waking up now and they're like, oh, this is a segment we need to engage, when it's like we always liked sports, to talking more about emerging trends in the digital and tech space. So Arwina, I know esports is probably, I think they're charting to become $1 billion industry. Can you talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in esports when it comes to engagement, when it comes to the technology, and how fans are using the second screen or their mobiles and not really paying attention to the TV, just sort of that competition with how we're actually engaging.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, esports is video games played at a competitive level and people watching other people play those video games. I think some of the trends that we're seeing are, admittedly, they're very hyped up. There are more people that watch esports than HBO, ESPN, and Netflix combined. That is a true fact. But I think they fixate themselves on, the minutes watched or the eyeballs watched. But like you said, most of the time people just kind of have it on their second screen. In comparison, I think the average esports fan actually spends only $4 a year on esports, versus the NFL fan that spends like almost $70 a year on sports. So there's still that very, massive opportunity for monetization. Other trends would be, because esports is so accessible, like you could literally have 5 generations play together on a team. for example, I could have my grandpa, my mom, myself, and, future kids, play the same game, and we could, compete with another family. So that's, the opportunity is definitely there, but the industry is still very small. So, if this is a field or industry that you're interested in, I think it's, worthwhile to even, start exploring if it's something that you want to work in, something that you want to have a joint venture in, etc.
We will talk to her after about all of that because she knows a lot about that stuff. Jessica, I want you to talk a little bit about the trends in performance training and how we're using the blade technology and like what that is. And I do have a little video clip because I'm going to show it to you guys. I know some people might like, treadmill, what are you talking about? So I'm going to play this clip, and after I'm done, you can tell us all about it.
For the record, it does look a little nicer in there now. That was probably only a few months after I had opened, so I hadn't had the back wall finished or anything like that, so it looks a lot nicer. But so basically the treadmill, the focus of it is being able to break down stride technique and adding a lot of strength to your stride, because of course you're working against the treadmill. There's a lot of different things you can do, whether it just be regular stride training, and you saw him holding a stick, and we're throwing a beanbag. So we try to make it fun for the players, so they're not only able to just focus on it, focus on their skating when we're telling them to, but they're also able to see the mirror out in front of them. We also use some videoing as well too, so that we can play it back and show them exactly what they're doing. But essentially at the end of the day, when you see, for anyone who goes to any hockey practices, or you've passed through a rink before, typically there's at least 20 players on the ice, sometimes maybe 1 or 2 coaches, and you can go through drills with some players, but you can't really break things down the way that you can when it's a one-on-one setting. And think about all these 6 and 7-year-old boys and girls who are just out there to have fun, and absolutely you can still have fun on the ice, but at the end of the day, your stride is the most important part of you as a player. So this really gives us the opportunity to break things down, and that's the reason why I really fell in love with this treadmill, is because you can get through to players a lot easier in that one-on-one setting, as well as really explain it to them. Because could you imagine, even right now, I could, for anyone who hasn't even put on a pair of skates before, if I show you how to do things on the treadmill and explain it to you in that one-on-one setting where I'm showing you as you're doing it and telling you as you're doing it, it really helps them grow as an athlete. And that's why I was pushing for it so much, and that's why I went into that for sure. Because you can see the growth from the players from day one, and you can make it fun. You can do stick handling, shooting, backwards, crossovers. There's no limit other than stopping. But no one really wants to stop anyway. They just want to keep skating. But
I was gonna say, do you ever just put on your own music when it's like after hours and just get on the treadmill and do your own?
I do.
It looks like a lot of fun.
It is. It is a lot of fun.
Need some practice.
Absolutely. It's a hard workout for sure. You are harnessed in, so there is that ability to, like, if you do trip and fall, you don't ever hit the ground, which is pretty good too. The only issue is that if you ever let go and you trip and fall and you can't pause it, I'm just a little concerned about being stuck there for the night. But so that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And April, what are you seeing with some trends with digital and mobile, and how sports teams are either investing in new technology or creating new platforms to engage fans, or to just kind of expand on the sports industry, whether it's the stories or the new things that are going on in sports? So how are they doing that?
Mobile. No, I'm joking. I'm half joking. But yeah, mobile is definitely becoming more and more of a thing. I've been only working for Rover for about 2 years. And since then, a lot more teams are putting more and more into their app. When I was at the Jays, I went Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, email, website. I didn't care about that. And now teams are. You're even seeing a lot of like NHL has like their own BAM app, but you're seeing more and more NHL teams branch off. The Leafs have their own app. TFC has their own app. Teams are wanting that data. The importance nowadays is owning that data, having a team being able to reach out to the fan, and again having that data so that we can teams can target people appropriately. And with that comes to the idea of partnerships. Again, no longer is it just logo placement. It's how can we engage fans in a way that fans want to be engaged, but also find a way to directly tie it to partnerships. So like Camille was saying, it's not just like Tessa and Scott, but instead finding ways, or whomever the athletes may be, it's finding ways to make the partnership make sense on digital. So I think teams more and more are finding ways to not just use one platform. They're trying to use their voice to better storytell. We're seeing more and more video. Video is becoming more and more powerful. You're seeing it across college too. They're just trying new things. They're testing it out. They're not being afraid. There's an online community on Twitter if you really like sports and digital. That's just hashtag SMS Sports, and the people there are sharing content that is just incredible. So I recommend that you check it out, or SM Sports, sorry. And it's just awesome. You'll see all this stuff that I'm talking about. Every piece of fan engagement that you'd want to see is there. And there's some really, really incredible people out there doing that content, and a lot of them are women.
We know with technology, things change every day. You know, we had a big conversation about TikTok, and I'm sure by the time we leave here, there'll be another platform. So how are each of you continually learning with all of the new technology that's coming in? We know when people go to stadiums now, there's, you know, virtual reality, there's artificial intelligence, there's people looking at, you know, what are fans' activities as soon as they get to these arenas. You know, does the person go and buy popcorn? How do we tie that into their ticket? I know I went to the Raptors game the other day and I could order things right by my seat through my phone. So everything obviously is happening at an accelerated pace with digital and transformation, and every company's going through it. But how do you guys stay on the pulse? How do you continue to get, you know, whether it's training or you know, attending conferences to really make sure that you're on to the next thing that's coming up? Arwina, I'll ask you that one.
Yeah, there's like a ton of different technologies like computer vision, AR, that you can incorporate into, I think, any brand or any company. For us, we are a tech company through and through. So it's kind of like in our blood. Like we just, you know, go do so many different things with our app. I think with our product, we've thought of everything actually. We've implemented, we've coded, we've designed, we've, you know, received feedback on different features. Although one surprising thing, admittedly, as a tech startup CEO, you also need to put an effort in, you know, your marketing and your storytelling. I have to say, like, doing tech is much easier than the psychology of marketing. Like that is a whole different beast, and it's just so much more difficult. That's actually what we struggle with, like, you know, as a tech
Call
company.
me and I'll help you with that.
Yeah,
because that's my background, comms and media and marketing. But I understand, I do hear from companies in tech that it's hard sometimes for them to tell their story because you're so focused on the end product, right? And designing that experience for customers, that telling your story, you're like, I don't have time to tell my story, I got to put my product out. But there is a fit, and yes, I understand that pain.
Yeah, and we, you know, for us, it's, you know, trying to automate and trying to save time and money for our customers. The marketing part, it's, you know, it's different.
And same question for you.
I would say how I stay up to date, it's kind of two major buckets, I would say. The first would be kind of your network. As April mentioned, like social media sports is a really great It's like a hashtag. You can follow it on Twitter. And so many people in the industry post like what their teams are doing. And it's really just important to, I think, either talk to other people to see what they're doing or even just look. So I know being in the social sports world, following a lot of other teams really opens up your eyes to what people in the industry are doing, because things in social media and in the digital space change so rapidly. It's hard to just say, I'm going to buy a textbook or I'm going to take a course, because sometimes that doesn't necessarily encompass everything you need to know in the moment, especially if you are going to be working for a property. So it's being able to have that nice background of being able to have like all the things you learned in school, all the really great tangible skills that you can get through a course, and then also just staying up to date with what's current. Also tapping into whether it's looking at different platforms, like you might be on a channel and you might see a team post a really great like graphic asset. And you might be like, okay, like that looks really awesome. But then you also might download their app and see a really cool experience and see how they're gamifying their app and seeing what questions they're asking, and really just being ingrained in the digital space really helps. The same way if you're really invested in pop culture and you love it, you're going to be looking up what all the celebrities are doing and staying up to the date with the latest. It's the same for the digital space, because honestly, that's the main way you can really stay up to date with what's new and what's happening, and then figure out how, if it's a good fit, you can incorporate it into your own company or your own brand.
Same with you. Like, I know that you have the Blade technology, but I'm sure you probably interact with other colleagues who are in performance training or using other, devices or other regimens to train. Like, how do you stay up to date?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to be kind of the opposite of you down here, where I actually really include a lot of my storytelling in my company right now. And I think that's where the really heart and soul of my company is. Like when you walk through my doors, I have all of my jerseys from my previous teams that I've played for displayed on the wall. I have a picture of me holding the Clarkson Cup in there, and like showing my achievements. So I think that I've done a pretty good job of trying to showcase why I'm doing this. Where I try to develop that tech side of things is learning how to understand the demands of my clients, which is first of all, it was always that just being noticed and being that taken an opportunity to actually have someone looking at you in a one-on-one setting. But then also, how are they going to translate that onto the ice? So whether it's doing off-ice training and partnering with other people in terms of how to incorporate that off-ice training into their actual training to include it to make it happen on the ice. And then of course, looking into things like more video to send to parents, maybe like what are they going to get the most out of their money with? And finding ways to showcase that in a different setting for sure. And so I think that for me, my storytelling is there. And now it's the tech side of it that I'm continuing to evolve with.
You guys can all help each other out, right? And did you answer the question yet?
I didn't.
No? You didn't.
But
Go
I
ahead.
can.
Oh, yes, please do. I wasn't sure if I started.
No, this time you didn't. So my role at Rover is a hybrid role. So half the time I'm doing marketing for Rover, and the other half I'm creating briefs for either prospects or customers. So I'm managing, on the other side of things, I'm managing our designers, which consists of the one other female on the team and one other individual that I poached from the Blue Jays. Haha. But long story short, so on that side of things, I'm writing briefs. So let's just pretend that the Kansas City Chiefs are heading to the Super Bowl and they want to do a really cool activation. They'll come to us hopefully a few weeks before, sometimes a few days before, and say, hey, we've got this idea. Can you help us bring it to life? And then our team does. And oftentimes, like, our platform is a platform that would enable their teams doing it. The COC is very self-sufficient and doesn't need my help. However, they're willing to have it if they want it. But a lot of teams will come to us and say, can you help us create this concept? And so we'll do it. And oftentimes it's their creativity, and other times it's us just scouring the internet, scouring what other teams are doing. The hard thing with Rover is that for us, people don't know that we exist and this technology exists. So no one's really going into Google and searching create your own app content. It's just something that at this present moment, it's not pushing the envelope. So for us, for me more so, it involves us telling the story, kind of like just saying it's about the storytelling. So instead of focusing on our own marketing, we're focusing on helping our customers and then telling the stories of our customers. And in that, other teams are seeing it and then coming to us wanting to know how they did it.
You know, we touched earlier on, someone mentioned it, and I was going to ask about this, just how the impact of gamification has kind of taken over sports, but I know it's also translated to other industries, where people want, you to get a product, but then you get a perk with it. Or they're interacting with you another way where you collect points through an app, and then you kind of get better services. So talk a little bit about the impact of gamification in esports, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, we're super competitive. I think as a team, even we tried to compete with each other. Oh, I finished this faster than you did, but all in good, in good laugh, obviously. Well, I think in esports there's a lot of gamification obviously going on. Even our own app. Just as a one-liner, we build community platforms tailor-made for brands to enter the esports market or to outreach to gamers. So if you're outreaching to gamers, you need not just like a typical boring platform where people can post videos or photos or content. It has to be gamified. There needs to be a leaderboard. There needs to be a reward system. It has to be authentic. So a lot of that, we've actually tried to take gaming features and put it into our tech. So if you play a video game, you know that you need to level up. You know that when you level up, you get a special clothing, armor, or whatsoever, or a special weapon or whatsoever in the game. And then sometimes you get a shiny badge because, you're this top player. So that's the type of gamification that we have on our tech as well. And that's because, we also play video games. So if it excites us, then it means it'll excite the customers of our clients.
I want to touch on something I think April was mentioning about the team where you work. And I know sometimes, we're still not seeing that gender parity with women that work in digital tech or sports. You sometimes, I know some of you mentioned you were the only woman there. How are you hoping that maybe there's going to become a better pipeline of women who are going to be thriving in sports and tech in that space? Because it's still, I know, people say they'll walk into a room and there's like 2 people working on digital and they're women, but there's not that many women, there's more men. So, what more do you think the industry could do to encourage women to?
Is this for me?
Yes,
Okay.
because I know you have a lot to say.
I do. So again, when I was working for MLB, it was a bit different. That was the reality TV show, so it was about 6 men to 3 women when it started, and when it ended, it was 2 women and 1 man. So that's okay. But the Jays, the marketing department was completely dominated by women, and then all the other departments are mostly dominated by men, especially the statistics and anything that involved more of the math side or more tech side of things. At Rover. There's myself and Andrea as the 2 women there. It's a smaller team, so we'll give them that. But the future is, I truthfully believe, and maybe I'm slightly biased here, but women tend to be a little more creative. And so I'm really hoping, for people that want to go into sports, and I'll just say this quickly, having done the league side and having done the team side, if you have a passion for working either in the digital or for sports, I can't say enough that working indirectly or for a tech is the way to go. Since I was 5 years old, I thought the Expos or the Blue Jays or that team side was the dream. And you could ask, I have it in my high school yearbook. I was going to go work for the Blue Jays, and I did it. And it was amazing, and there was a lot of positive things there. But working in tech is the most rewarding job I have ever done. It comes with good leadership. So I'm very fortunate to be a woman, but have a voice. I'm kind of loud, so that helps. But honestly, it's super rewarding. You're getting that sports knowledge. When I was working in the Jays, and I said this last time, but when I was working for the Jays, I was at the office by 7:30 a.m. and the games ended around 11 o'clock at night, so I never got home until midnight. And that was every day. That was weekends. There was games 6 or 7 days a week. And I'm not saying, please, if you want to work for a team, by all means, go do it. And you can do it. You can wholeheartedly do it. I just want to announce to the world that there's other ways to go work in sports. There's the partnership side. The Jays had really big partnerships with the TD and Heinz, and go work for one of their departments and try something out there. Or, as I strongly recommend, the tech side, because I'm thriving and loving it. And again, it helps that I have great leadership and I'm really, really passionate. But there's just so many jobs out there for women, and it's just so rewarding.
Do you want to add to that, Jessica? Either the sports side, encouraging women to, be in sports, work for sports organizations, or on the technology side.
For sure. I think that for me, every person or every female that I've ever encountered that is pushing the limits on what jobs that they are doing, we are constantly needing to prove ourselves a little bit more in everything that we do in sport. And I think that at the moment it's a little bit frustrating, but down the line it's going to pay off in a big way, because we are getting stronger and stronger by having to always, do the extra thing, go the extra mile, stay the latest, do the extra work. And I think that eventually that will pay off and get us to, the top of those companies and in those leadership roles and in those areas. So I think that what females are doing right now in the sports industry are really going to help shape the future of the sports industry, in whether it be a year from now or a few years from now. It's not going to be a change overnight, which is unfortunate, but the people that are in the roles that they are in right now and telling their stories and having those voices are going to keep pushing the limits to the next generation and onwards.
Do you want to add to that, or would you like to respond?
So in my current role, I think I was very fortunate to have a female director who was the lead of digital when I first started. So that was really great to be able to see a woman in a new space and in sport and technology. However, I think if you take a step back and look at the sports industry as a whole, I think there's so much room to grow, especially looking from grassroots to the executive director level. I think I was really fortunate to work with Canadian Women in Sport, and working on their board of directors, I've kind of been able to kind of see those gaps, I think, a lot more than I would have even known. So working in sports, I think we always focus on like female athletes, or you'll be like, okay, we need more female coaches, or even more female GMs and all of those big things, which are really important, and we really do need that. But sports participation is also really important as well. I think when you speak to a lot of women who do make it to those different levels, you do find out that they were involved in sports when they were younger. So that's something that Canadian Women in Sport is really working towards, is kind of helping more young girls get into sports and stay in sports. And they're also, I think, doing a lot of work to have more women in leadership roles. So whether that's in board directors on sports teams or for sports organizations. So it's really taking a step back and looking at it as a whole, because I think there's so many places that women aren't as visible right now. And I think when you look at the media, there has been so much emphasis on highlighting women's sports and highlighting athletes, which is really great and needs to continue. But there's also so many kind of blind spots that a lot of people aren't really looking at, that we have so much space to grow. And I think it's really calling that out and highlighting it and kind of figuring out, okay, what are the steps that we can take to actually change that? Because all of those are important as well. So women are able to see themselves in the entire sports system.
Did you answer, Arwina?
That's kind of like the same thing for esports. I'm not gonna same thing in esports. You just have to, I think I try to tell everyone this, you can't be what you can't see. So it's always nice. I would absolutely encourage everyone to, work in esports as well. But you know what? It's better to actually start a business.
And that's very interesting, because I know, Jessica, you obviously started your business. Do you want to touch on the fact that there's a lot of studies out there that align women who are in sports or took varsity sports or are athletes, to starting their own companies, and just sort of how important that is to have that correlation? And for yourself being a professional hockey player, hockey athlete, how has your background as an athlete shaped sort of your working style as a leader and owner of your company?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it starts with going back to your point on having the opportunity to play at a younger age. I had the opportunity to play at that young age all the way through up until I was 24 or 25 at the time, when I stopped playing. And simply it was just because there was not an opportunity for me to make the money that I needed to in order to be sustainable and live in downtown Toronto, which is not cheap, and pay off my student debt and do all of those things and start a company at the same time. So at some point you do realize that even though I was quote unquote younger when I stopped playing, and I definitely had more time in me to continue to play. But at the end of the day, you know when it's time to step back as an athlete and to start to give back to the community. And that was my intention with starting my business, was to give back to the people who helped me get to where I was, and show young women and young males that there is an opportunity to continue in your sport, not just as an athlete, but as a professional in that area. Doesn't have to be coaching. It doesn't have to be necessarily even in tech, but in a way that you can just give back to the people who showed you how to become a better person because of that sport, for sure. And that's kind of what my intention was with my company.
I always get this question from people when they say, well, you're trying to amplify the voices of diverse women, and what does that mean? Is it skin color? Is it ethnicity? But Arwina, what I love about you, and I know you guys all have this as well, is its perspective and its experiences. So, you were sharing with me that you went to school on 2 different continents. At a
High school,
not at the same time. And obviously you worked in Hong Kong for a little bit.
Yep.
And then you came to Toronto. So can you talk a little bit about what you're able to bring to the table in terms of a diverse perspective, and how does that play into you running your business, and also engaging with your clients, based on the fact that you have that experience?
Right. I think it definitely shaped me as a person and allows me to have a more open mind on, where people are coming from. I think it helped me increase, empathy skills, which is like really hard for some people to do that. And, even just differences, because I'm very different in a way that I studied in 2 different, English systems. So it's both British and American. So in Hong Kong, it's British. Here, it's more westernized American English. So, when I came here, I would say something like laboratory, or, like lift, not the car
elevator.
sharing. Yeah. So, like all of those differences, it became, icebreakers, or like topics like, where are you from? So, and it's just, people are curious. So it helped me build a lot of different relationships. And when I speak to our clients, and we have international clients, so it helped in that way as well. We have clients in the Middle East, we have clients in Hong Kong, we have clients in the States and in Canada. So just my own personal experience actually complemented, my conversations with them, because, like, for example, in Asia, there's specific sarcasm that not a lot of Westerners know. So
Can you talk
like,
about that? What is that like?
So, for example, if you're in a heated argument, as an example, with someone, living in Asia, and, you don't really know what you're doing, they're yelling, you're yelling. So you kind of say something like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like something like that. And, here you don't say stuff like that. In Asia, it breaks the ice. So they see that you're really apologetic and that you're shocked that you're even yelling in the first place. So they back down, and that is not a typical business conversation over here. So you
guys learned a global tip. See, when you come to a She's4Sports event, you're going to learn extra things than what we said we were going to talk to you about.
that is sorry, that's the first thing I thought about, the sarcasm that happens over there. But
does anyone else want to touch on the diversity in terms of perspective and experiences, and how does that help your teams, or how does that help you approach your work?
Yeah, I can talk about that. I think, like you said, I think when we think about diversity, there's a lot of major buckets that a lot of people think of. So like International Women's Day just happened, and they look at women as a whole. And there's so many different types of women, whether it's from where you come from because of your ethnic background, whether it's the socioeconomic class you're in, whether it's just the country that you were born in. And there's so many different things that influence what your contributions can be and how you kind of connect with people. And I think in my current role at the COC, it's really good to kind of understand all of those different elements, because I do focus so much on athlete storytelling and telling their stories. So understanding the full picture, you kind of can't look at them as just one lens. It's the intersectionality of it all. And I think even on the flip side, when I'm thinking of my professional work environment, even in collaboration and brainstorms, when you have people that have so many different perspectives, it's so great when we're talking about fan engagement or how you connect with consumers, because not all the consumers are the same. You might connect with one fan because of the male demographic, or you might connect with them because you're connecting with them from more of a socioeconomic standing. There's so many different elements that layer into someone's experience or how they consume content, how they want to participate in content. And it's really great to kind of take a step back and have that wider lens, and incorporating different voices is the first step in kind of helping you be able to see things from a different angle.
I'm going to go to another theme or question because I do hear this is happening. Unfortunately, women that work in sports and tech, sometimes they get, whether it's a lot of criticism or trolling. So do you have any tactics for how you deal with that?
Tell me, because I laughed, yeah. So social media is great, but it can also be not so great. The reason that I found success working in sports, and one of the reasons I got that opportunity, was because when Twitter first came out, I was this passionate baseball fan who was a female. Wow. Now it doesn't seem quite as abnormal, but honestly, there was like maybe 122 people that followed the Blue Jays on Twitter. And I feel like I was like the only female. And as that grew, I just became louder and louder, and people were following me. Look, it's the Blue Jays female fan. And I got my brand that way. I became so ingrained in the Blue Jays, and I was like, this is going to be my brand. I'm just going to push it forward to the point that it was good and bad. Don't feed the trolls is the simplest solution. That's easier said than done as an individual. Running the Jays social media in 2015, 2016, we had really good years. That was a lot of fun. 2017, I think the Blue Jays account, i.e. me, got told to go kill themselves over 1,000 times because people don't realize that they're talking to somebody. You'd be shocked some of the stuff I read. And again, as that passionate for that two-way communication, I read everything. And there was some bad stuff. So that wasn't to me as in April, but as my personal account, I've got told some stuff. And it's that whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, you think you're a baseball fan? Name 5 players on the team. And it's like, I can name all 25 if you really want me to go there. Or sometimes I'll be like, okay, well, name the pitcher the only pitcher that's won over 500 wins and not win a Cy Young. And they're just stumped. I'm like, well, it's Cy Young, but I know that and you don't. So, but it's just using your education, like being confident in your abilities. People are always going to try to push you down, whether that's other women or whether that's men, whether it's jealousy or whether it's just some people will just use you as a petting stool to get higher. And you just got to you be you. The biggest thing I can say is ignore the hate, either whether it's from within or whether it's the trolls online. When I first applied to be on that reality TV show in 2012. And I made this silly video. And when I made that video, there were people online that didn't like me because, again, I was this really loud, kind of obnoxious Blue Jays fan.
You were just great. They just didn't see it.
Well, thank you. But, I was very loud. I was always tweeting. And somebody started a hashtag like too fat to fit in the cave. And that was used by like 300 people. Now 300 people in terms of the internet world isn't that much, but back in 2012 that was quite a lot. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember just being like, this is awful. This is awful. And then I said, okay, well, that just means I have to try even harder. And sure enough, tried harder and got in. So listen, there's going to be some tough days, especially if you're running a team account, if you're running a personal account. Putting yourself out there is never going to be easy. Take it from me. But building your brand is so integral, and just believing in yourself is I know that sounds like cliche, but it's just ignore the hate, whether it's from within or from online, and just keep persevering.
Have you dealt with any of that, Jessica? Or men who come across and they just kind of see what you're doing and maybe there's just a little bit of resistance or more critique than there should be?
Yeah, I actually have a story, not necessarily on social media. When it comes to things like social media, especially with women's hockey, I mean, especially with what's happened lately, we're pushing for a female league to come out of it, and all you see are those people who, women's hockey can never exist, etc. So I've learned to just, like you've said, just kind of push through and ignore that. In person, I actually was at a coaching clinic this past summer, and it was kind of in a smaller town that I was doing my coaching clinic, and I was actually the only female in the room, and there was 50 people in the room, and I was the only one there for the coaching clinic. And already I kind of was like, you know what, whatever, like this is fine. I'm fine to be the only female in the room. And then I was given a prize for being the token female in the room, called out in front of everyone. And I kind of just like, it was one of those moments where you sit there and you're like, did that really just happen? And it did just happen. Yeah.
In 2020, right?
And yeah, it was 2019 at the time, 2019. But yeah, but still, regardless, 2019. And it's one of those things where if it was someone else who maybe was a little bit insecure about being in that room, it just would have potentially crushed their coaching opportunities and crushed their coaching dreams. But I think that because, as a young girl, I played on some of the boys hockey teams and had to get dressed in a closet and, like all that stuff. It's almost like I was used to that, which is unfortunate. And for me, that just kind of lit a fire in me rather than anything else. And, I did end up taking it to the measures I needed to. And I did, talk to the organization about it afterwards and just let them know that, hey, I'm not here to stir the pot, but I should stir the pot because that shouldn't be happening right now, where, instead of showing off that there's one female in the room, maybe celebrate me in a different way by not pointing me out. Yeah. And that's
Do you want to add to that, Camille?
Sure. I can build on what April says, talking from a team account, that sometimes I think people don't realize that it's a person behind there, and they might say things, they might criticize your knowledge about things, but it's really great just to take a step back and think, hold on, this has nothing to do with me. I think you have to constantly remind yourself, if you're going to do social media for a public account, that sometimes this has nothing to do with you. Someone is taking out their anger on you for no reason. But I think also on the flip side, on your personal account, like I don't really get a lot of trolling on my own personal account, but I have done on-camera stuff for team accounts. So then you get some people who, if it's like in an interview, they're like, this girl doesn't know what she's talking about, or they criticize like what you're wearing, or like the most random things. But at the end of the day, I think you just have to be confident in your own ability and understand that and kind of just have like water off a duck's back, or that saying where you're just like, you know what, I'm going to brush it off because I know that you're just picking on me, and I'm not going to let you get to me.
We need to record that. And anybody that needs like inspiration, on some mornings, you just press play and it's Camille's voice and then you're ready to go. Arwina, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, no, I think being in video games gives you really thick skin. I think I've heard every insult in the book. Like playing video games, because there's absolutely no filter whatsoever. I could probably do a demo right now, get on a video game, and someone will tell me to go back to the kitchen and make a sandwich. Like that is the kind of environment video games is in right now, unfortunately. Because like if I saw someone on the basketball court, they don't really have the guts to say that, in person. But like if I went on NBA 2K or like any other sports games or any video games, like there's no filter whatsoever. All walls are down. They don't know who I am. They would just like say whatever. But I mean, let's talk about if they knew who I am, or for example, when I was featured on CBC, I think a few months ago, the article was overall like 96% positive. And then there's like, for some reason, like it gets reblogged or whatsoever on other platforms. And when it did, I've seen like so many comments, like just so many negative comments about like, why is she being featured? Just a question like that. Why is she being featured? Why are we highlighting her? Why not like male entrepreneurs? And I'm like, what? I think I just laugh it off. And honestly, I think it's because of, like I said, the years of just being in gaming, being in tech, and being in business, all heavily male dominated. And, what Camille said, just being confident in your own skin, and like what I said earlier as well, like this has nothing to do with gender. You and I will make a lot of money. My tech, my product will make your company a lot of money. So let's just focus on that.
And I one final question I wanted to ask each of you is just kind of, we can end on a bit of a happier side of it. What do you guys see in terms of the vision of sports and tech, or what do you hope to accomplish through your own companies or where you work when it comes to sports and tech? Jessica, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Where I see sport and tech, especially with specific to hockey, is just the diversity aspect of having both male and female, everyone from all genders, all sorts of the worlds, you know, being able to have that space to feel like they can be successful and feel like they can work off a platform that they're going to be successful in. And it starts with beginning at the younger age and working their way up. So that's like a very broad statement in terms of where I see sport going. On a shorter term, I just hope that what myself and other entrepreneurs, whether they be male or female, what they do though is open up a space for females specifically in hockey to get an opportunity to grow, not only at a younger age, but in their future endeavors, and make it a professional thing that they can actually do, whether they be athletes or just in that source of hockey in general. Because I do feel that it is still so strongly based in male dominant, and when it comes down to it, every great company and every company that is the most successful are going to be people who are including everyone in it. And I think that that's where I hope to see the sport of hockey go at some point.
Yeah. April?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've touched on the fact that I truly hope that people are as fortunate as I am to have found such a great job in tech and sports. Again, I feel truly blessed to be where I am at Rover, and I know there's other sport tech companies in the city. I know there's one on Front named Brizzy. They're also doing a lot in sport tech if you guys are interested. But there's a lot in the city and across Canada and across North America and across the world in that industry. So if that's where your passion lies, I truly hope that you're able to find it, because you wear a bunch of different hats and you continue to learn. And again, our platform and much like others are finding new ways to engage fans. So if all of us are also fans at the same time, you're just finding other ways to engage yourself. So again, keep persevering, ignoring the trolls. And I can't speak highly enough about working in tech. It is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah,
Next. To echo what Jess said, I would also love to see the world of sports become a lot more diverse, a lot more inclusive, incorporating people from a lot of different backgrounds and kind of have them represented in all different areas of sport in general. I think that's so important. I think that's only how the industry is going to grow and get better. We need diverse perspectives, and it's so important. So I would love to see that just across sport in general as a whole. On this sports digital side, I think, or in the digital industry as a whole, I think I would just love to see people kind of, I think internally within organizations, respect and understand digital a little bit more. I think we've come a long way in the last couple of years. I know in the beginning it used to be like, social media, what's that? Like, we're just going to let anyone do it. And at one point, maybe it was interns, but now you still see that people are calling social media managers interns, and you're like, these people have entire careers. There's strategies that go into it. It's not just as simple as writing a tweet in 2 seconds and sending it out and it goes viral. Like, a lot of work, a lot of strategic thinking goes into that. And I think to see more people understand that and see the value that's put into that and see the value that those employees bring to the overall business and the bottom line would just be something that I would love to see in the near future.
That's great. So for me, I think personally, it's hopefully getting my second successful exit for my current company within the next 5 years. And for my company to become a global, of course, household name or company name, where if a brand wants to enter esports, or if a gaming organization wants to connect with their audiences better, then they would give us a call.
Well, thank you so much. You guys again, as I said, you're a powerhouse panel. I loved your journeys to where you are now in sports and tech, and how, you know, your past, whether it's travels, living other places, being an athlete, has complemented where you are now, or being a huge fan, in your case for MLB and baseball, and just sort of where you are now and the perspectives you bring to your organizations. So yes, give you guys a round of applause. And if you haven't been to a She's4Sports event in the past, we tend to leave some good time for you guys to ask questions. You know, this is your touch point with these awesome women. Feel free to ask them, you know, whatever you want to ask. There are no stupid questions. So does anybody want to ask something?
I guess for me, I'm just starting out in the sporting industry and the sporting world. So any advice that you would have from like a fresh-faced, new, almost graduate, fingers crossed, just some advice that you'd give to somebody starting out in the sporting world.
Don't be afraid to wear a mascot costume. In all honesty, you know, some of the starting jobs, it's not necessarily about the salary. Know what you're worth, but also like just don't be afraid to just dive right in and try a bunch of things. And in that role, make sure you're like shadowing a bunch of different people, trying to learn more about what other people are doing in that role, so you can learn. Because you might, you know, start in digital and then learn more from the partnership side. Maybe actually, you know what, I'm really passionate about that, or maybe even the finance side. Who knows? But I would just say, yeah, don't be afraid of anything. Apply. I would say that like the sports industry is really, 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 really competitive, which again is why I'm saying if you're passionate about sports, tech could be your way to go. It's kind of like, you know, I having gone through thousands of resumes when I was hiring at the Jays, it's not quite as competitive on the tech side. So if sports is where you want to go, there are that other angles, the partnership side and the tech side as well. But like I said, try everything and keep learning, because the world is constantly evolving, and good luck.
I want to just slip in there and say, like, I have colleagues who work at different sports organizations, and because we built an ecosystem of women who we've either featured on our panel or we feature them through our digital content, you know, I have some of them emailing me, and I've had a few men saying that they're getting applicants for different sports jobs, but they're not seeing women apply. So don't feel like you need to have all the skill sets. If you're interested in something and you want to learn and you want to grow, companies are looking for people like that who want to grow. If you're a fan of a sport, you know, that makes it even better, because you do like sports. But I would say apply, because I've had, I think it was 3 months ago, someone from Saskatchewan, Humboldt, that's where that is. Yes. They emailed me and said they're looking for a operations manager at one of their sports arenas. And do I know anybody? And I posted it on our LinkedIn, and, you know, I'm not sure if any women got back to him, but they also shared with me they're having a really hard time seeing female applicants. And this could be for any role. I also have a colleague who's in San Jose. She's a VP with the San Jose Sharks. And she says to me, you know, I'm just not seeing women apply for roles. And in her world, she deals with data analytics and business intelligence. You know, we're hearing that constant theme that women are not applying for sports jobs. So they are there, whether you want to be working with athletes, whether you want to work as a sports massage therapist, digital person in sports. There are jobs out there. I just think as women, we just have to apply for it. Men, they'll have 5 out of 10 skills and they'll still apply for it. Women, we might have 8 and say, well, we don't have the other 2, so we're not going to do it. So I just think, you know, just encouraging anybody that's applying for roles in sports, just apply for it, because companies are wanting to see more women apply for these roles. So I just had to add that. Does anyone else on the panel want to give advice for someone starting out, or do you want to go to another question? Yeah.
Hi everyone, thanks for that. That was really great. I work for part of the Irish government, so we help like Irish businesses to grow their business in Canada. But actually, I'm on a 2-year program, and I already kind of work on a bit of the technology side. So I kind of support technology clients that are they target retailers here, but I personally have a really strong interest in sports, so I kind of wanted to mix the two, and it's really interesting hearing about Rover. And I know you're talking about it there, but I kind of wanted to find ways to find ways to apply to jobs in maybe business development in terms of sports tech companies here, because a lot of the Irish companies would be too small and they wouldn't actually have people on the ground. But I'm planning to stay in Canada for a couple more years. So just kind of advice around the best ways of doing that.
Yeah, I think even going on applying to jobs that might be a little bit of a lateral shift, or whether it's a little bit of a new industry, I think it's a really helpful tip to kind of obviously looking at the postings and figuring out, okay, where are the alignments between what I do now and what are the new skills? But there are so many different ways to gain additional skill sets that don't come in the context of having a job. So I know, like, whether it comes to content writing, you yourself, you could maybe be like, I want to be a sports writer, but not necessarily have any experience being a sports writer. You could start a blog yourself and kind of write some more additional content. I think there could be opportunities if you are looking at business development, like networking and speaking to people is really great, because you find out what type of language they're using, what they're actually looking for, and then going about and how you can actually find those skills, whether it's adding that into your current role and what you're doing right now. So maybe you do want to apply for a business development role, and is there a way at your current organization for you to kind of get that experience and support in some of their business development efforts, or at least learn that side of the business? Because I think even being able to speak the language, if you haven't worked it, kind of shows that you understand it. And then it just falls back into what Nike was saying earlier with the initiative and being willing to learn. So there's a lot of different ways for you to gain experience that you need. It's just kind of being opening and being a little bit more creative about how you're going to get it.
She nailed it on the head, but I would say that tech companies often always need to be hiring more than others. So sometimes it's good to be proactive. And like Camille was saying, networking is probably your biggest go-to. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and ask for coffee. I personally try to go with coffee with somebody every 2 weeks to try to tell people they're interested in what I have to say. So I try to tell them my unbiased perspective into life, but have coffee with as many people as you can, or have LinkedIn chats or have Zoom chats to just try to learn from him or her about the industry, to make sure, hey, right now you're passionate about those 3 things. Maybe after hearing my whole story, you're like, actually, that's not the field I want to go to. Hopefully it's not, but but just keep networking. And like I said, tech companies, I think they tend to hire, if the right candidate came along, they'll find a way to hire the right person. So you just have to go ahead and try to make yourself that right person.
Are there any job sites, like, specifically that you know about for sports techie people, or someone that you're following that's on the pulse of what's going on? Like, for me, I'm on LinkedIn a lot too, so I do see things coming in, and I now have people emailing me to see, do you know a woman that could apply for this job, or can you post this? So I'm trying to help as well too, but I'm just wondering, do you guys follow anybody who maybe is in sports and tech and HR somehow, or?
The Front Office Sports has a newsletter every day, and at the bottom of the Front Office Sports newsletter, there's jobs. They're often good. They're not always tech. Sometimes they're team, sometimes they're league, but they're tech as well. And there's also like the hashtag sport tech. So I'd obviously check that out. There's probably, if you add the hashtag hiring or job, they might come up exactly.
Is that on Twitter? Sorry.
Yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn.
Okay. Right.
So I would recommend that. But yeah.
Is it worth looking at accelerators, or are they? I guess they're kind of smaller companies. But yeah, just if being pointed in the right direction is. I obviously know, like, I LinkedIn, and I guess part of my role now is to kind of meet up and network and that kind of stuff anyway. So that's really helpful. But if there's any specific kind of programs, or I don't know, other events that you could point me in the direction of, that'd be great. But maybe it's just a case of reaching out.
You're giving me an idea now. Like, does She's4Sports do like a speed dating thing where we've got women in the industries, and then you guys can come and talk to them for 5 minutes? I don't know. I'm always curating in my head, so my best ideas are in the shower. But
that's a good one.
Sometimes, I'm like thinking of things as well. So stay tuned, because you might have sparked another thing that we could do.
Perfect.
I'll give you my email after, and I'll connect with you. Some stuff, anything I think of, I'll pass it your way.
Yeah. And I would just add on to that for anyone who's looking into sports. I know like Cirque is a good one for if you're looking for in Canada, because I know some of those it's more international, which is great to look at as well, just to learn about other sports jobs that are out there that might not even be in the Canadian market yet, because sometimes we're a little bit slower. Some of the other teams are bigger and have so many more other roles. Also, I know April talked a lot about not necessarily only looking at sports teams or properties. There's like tech, which is another great industry. There's agencies that work for a lot of teams, or whether it's sports brands like Nike's and all of those other elements. So if you are really interested in kind of the general sports industry and landscape, there's so many different avenues to get into it and at least get your feet wet to be like, okay, I actually do love this, or and kind of test it out first. So keep an open mind.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you, ladies, for being on the panel today. This is just kind of a general question. It might be more geared to April, just because of your marketing experience. But right now, I'm in a role where a group of 4 or 5 of us full-time employees actually manage 3 or 4 different programs, whether it's with Under Armour in the community or with like a prep school. And I'm responsible not just being on court, but outside of that being like the social media, marketing, branding, all that stuff. The thing that I'm struggling with right now is because our president doesn't have a budget, doesn't have one, to hire someone to help me. I'm having an issue with, okay, how do I actually plan my branding map to do what you said, like activate on Twitter, activate on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, and then not get caught in a tornado?
So long story short, there is, I would say, consistency is key. So you don't need to be everywhere. Teams and brands often think they need to be everywhere, but they don't. Rover is not getting a TikTok account for more than that reason. But in all honesty, it's choosing your platforms, figuring out a consistent schedule based on when the fans or when the people are engaging with. In terms of like budgeting, every single business out there is saying the same thing. The only business I've worked with so far that hasn't was the Jays. We had to sell tickets, and I had a social media budget of millions of dollars. So that was a lot of fun. You can use that if you want to. Well, the Jays have this. I don't know how that's going to get you very far. But in all honesty, again, like and in terms of like getting help or it's setting your brand guidelines. It's coming up with a content calendar and trying to stick to that as much as possible. If you're finding something is resonating, it's doubling up on what's resonating and figuring out if something's not working. If Facebook's algorithm is giving you right now 0.5% organic content right now, it may not be the channel for you. For some, it still is, or maybe your demographic isn't, under 21 and over 65. It's like, bye-bye, Facebook. You're just not worth it for me. So again, without knowing the actual brands, it's hard to give you concise advice other to tell you you're not alone. Millions of people are having that problem, not just with like budget in terms of money, but time. How do I get this all done? My role, like I said, at the Jays, I was one person. At the Red Sox, they had 8 people doing my one job. Since then, it's fixed. Since then, they've now have 3 or 4 people at the Jays doing the digital. But I was a single person, and you being four people of your community managers, you're probably doing a lot. So I think it just comes down to figuring out what's working and figuring out also, it could be also where your team strengths are. If your team is really good at, Instagram stories, and maybe finding a way to weaving that in there. I don't know if that helps, but that's my advice.
Sure. I would say if you're really strapped for resources, like April said, everyone is, and kind of in order to, if you are trying to get more budgets, I think a really big foundational piece is understanding what your overall business or what whoever approves the budget really cares about, and kind of building a strategy to make sure it ladders up to that, because that's a really great way to kind of show the value. Because like I said before, not everyone necessarily sees the value of social and digital, and you might be doing all these efforts, which might be really great, and you might really engage with your fans and they might love the content. But if your company is really focused on selling products, like if it's Under Armour and they're really focused on selling products and what you're doing on social doesn't ladder up into selling products, they're not really going to see that value, and it's going to be even harder for them to sign off and be like, here's more budget so you can get more resources to do more cool things. Obviously, it's really important to still like engage with your fans and make sure that you're growing that audience that way. But it is really important to make sure that whatever you're doing strategically aligns with what your business is focusing on. So kind of having that top of mind and then building your priority list. And like April said, building out a content plan that kind of supports those objectives, but then also supports your own team's objectives and what's going to help you long term.
Hi, everyone. My question is more so in terms of mentorship. You touched it a little bit just now. I just wonder what your experience was like in having mentors, and if you had, how was it like? So like you were saying, there's not many women in the field, specifically in tech, and I'm doing data analytics. I don't see anyone. So I don't know who to reach out to. I don't know how to start. I'm curious how you came up in your pathway for tech.
Resource I can share is my friend Netta, who is a VP at the San Jose Sharks. She, I believe she's on the committee, or if it's a board, for WIST, Women in Sports and Tech. And if you just Google them, you'll find some resources and the people they featured and different people in that ecosystem. So there are other women out there in data analytics.
And she's awesome.
Yes, and Netta's awesome. She used to live in Toronto, used to work for MLSE, and then obviously got a great opportunity in San Jose to work with the Sharks. But there is an organization called Women in Sports and Tech. And if, as I said, if you Google them, you'll see what they've been up to and just sort of the resources they have.
I would say like mentors have been really helpful. I think in my personal career, I was lucky to have a mentor in my first role that kind of was the person that hired me and brought me on and was a woman in digital. And that was really great. I think I've also been fortunate enough to have mentors along the way that were male and female that were able to point me in the direction of other people. So you might meet someone that's really great. And like myself, like I'm not in data and analytics. So you might be like, this isn't a really great mentor for me. But if you kind of open it up and kind of have that conversation and be like, yes, I work in this field or I'm interested in this area, but I haven't quite seen anyone that like looks like me or resonates with my experiences. Do you happen to know anyone? The world is very small, like especially the sports world. It's very small. I don't like so many tech places. I know so many people who work in different places, and you'd be surprised. There's a lot of other people that can help connect you to someone if you're kind of just open and like forthright with what you're looking for, because I do think it's really great even to learn about their career paths or learn a little bit more about what the industry is actually like if you haven't quite stepped into it yet.
I think the first step that you want to do is list out the people that you admire. And it could be anyone. Honestly, don't hold yourself back. Go through it and then reach out and let them know exactly what you want. Hey, this is, I want to speak with you, pick your brain, and talk about this topic, that topic, and this is why I want to do this, and this is why I reached out to you because I admire your work in XYZ. And then most of the time they do respond. That's actually how I got my own mentors. So I have a personal mentor, I have a business mentor, and then I also have like a company mentor. But then like at the same time, every single one of those people give me different advice all the time. So you also have to kind of take their advice with a grain of salt, of course. But that's kind of how I built mine. I picked, the people that I admired in business, tech, and esports, gaming, and then just go for it. So they're kind of like my sounding board all the time. And, we're on text message basis, and I could just call them up anytime. So it's nice to build that relationship.
Thank you. Kind of just to add on to that, you're all in positions now to be mentors for people who are asking for that. And Anka, I think you made a great point about curating that ecosystem of women around you. And I'm going to pick on Jess a little bit here because she has one male employee at her company. So just how you can all talk about being that or curating that ecosystem for women and giving them like those great opportunities to do stuff that they might not have like without you people.
Yeah, that's awkward because this is actually my boyfriend, and so he's like, yeah.
Great question though.
Yeah, picking on me. Yeah. No. Yeah, for sure. I think that at the end of the day, the thing about growing a company and growing a safe space for everyone is putting people in a safe place to have that opportunity. And it starts with someone taking the chance and maybe having that mentorship to get you to that next stage, but then also reminding yourself that now that you are in a certain role, there are people who are looking at you. I learned that really quickly as well when I had a 7-year-old come in on my treadmill, and he was really excited, and he saw the picture of me holding the Clarkson Cup, and he was like, oh, like, is that like the Stanley Cup? And I was like, yeah, it is. And then he turns to his dad and he said, can his sister win the Stanley Cup? And I said, no, unfortunately, there's no league right now. And he was like, that's not very nice. And I was like, yes, that's true. It's not very nice, but it's like, you're looking not only at the people who are maybe the younger generation of both male and female, that you are becoming that mentorship to them. So when it comes down to being that mentor, you may be female right now, or you may have had a mentor that was male, but where I came, like going full circle on where I see sport growing in the next little bit is that diversity of having both, and having that ecosystem that's not only helping females grow, but helping, you know, males grow in the same areas as well too. And just kind of having that connection of everyone should be involved in these type of things. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that my whole life I've had people that I don't know if they knew every time they were my mentor, but they were. The most recent was my VP at the time at the Jays. We both since left, but I probably text him once a week, once every 2 weeks, just to talk about stuff and talking about the industry. And it's really helping me like just feel more confident, because I really value his opinion. And in turn, I think I mentioned earlier, but I try to go for coffee with someone in the industry every 2-3 weeks. Just I'm willing, if people want to hear my path and hear my story, and if that helps guide them.
Your inbox is going to be flooded.
Please,
no, that's great.
I mean, please, I'm willing. I'm definitely willing. If my path can help someone get on the path, I would say that 95% of the people I've had coffee with are male. So I don't know if that's just because I scare women, but hopefully not. But honestly, I think both having mentors and being a mentor is really important. So yeah, it's a good question. Did you tell him to say that, or okay?
What do you think are some tangible ways we could, and I don't like to use the word empower, because I find when you say empower, they often like don't hire us or pay us. They often do things that may lift us up without actually bringing us forward. I'm talking about women. But what are some ways you think that, from executives to people who are just starting out in the company, could help women get more positions in tech or sport, or more so just make it more equal and create more opportunities for women?
I'll answer that one because I see it now. I think partnerships are so important. When you can work with other organizations, whether it's, you know, a women-led organization who's trying to get in touch with me, or a male who is trying to bring some diversity and inclusion activities or campaigns to their company, and in helping them shape those ideas. I think we all need to work with each other. You know, women need to work with women need to also work with men. And I think that's how things can change. Someone want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd also say I think like one of the key things that every individual can do, and this is for whether it's gender differences or even just like the way you communicate, if there are people who are a lot more loud in the room but people who are also more quiet, actually take the time to like listen to people, because that's something that's so small and so empowering. Because if people feel like they're being heard, they're more confident to speak up. And as they speak up, it's like that's when those ideas can come through. That's when they can prove and show like, I know what I'm talking about. That's when they can feel more confident. And those actual movements within companies can happen if people are empowered to actually feel like their voice is heard and having people listen to them. I think on another way that people can really do it is looking inside and expanding your own network. Like if I look around me and I only have women in my professional network, that's great. But I also should also have men in my professional network that I'm speaking with, people from very different backgrounds, so that if someone asks me about being like, do you know anyone who works in social? But every single person that I know that works in social looks the same, comes from the same experiences. That's not really helping lift up anyone else. And that's kind of on, I think, each and every one of us to look at the people that we know and make sure that our group isn't homogenous and have like group think, and kind of make sure that your own network is diverse, so that you can also help people from different groups get exposed to different other people.
I want everyone to introduce themselves. So because we're a cozy group, and maybe there's someone here that, you know, you really want to talk to after, and once they introduce themselves, you'll know a little bit more about them. So no pressure, but do you want to go first? Yeah, do you want to just stand up because I don't know how far this.
Hi, my name is Marilia. I've moved to Canada. It's been about 3 months. I'm from Brazil. I'm a former professional athlete. I never got to work with sports, and I came to Canada to actually study a postgrad in sport and event marketing because I want to stay here and work with sports and marketing together. Sorry. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Brody. I'm actually in my 5th year at Ryerson, so we'll be graduating in June. I was fortunate enough to grow up playing hockey and was able to play at a high level in the OHL and then play at Ryerson as well. I also happen to be the only male employee at Heart and Stride, so I'm very thankful for that opportunity as well. Yeah, and again, thank you all for doing this today. It was really great to hear from all of you, so thank you.
And tell us where you came from to join us today.
So we have a shared introduction because we are identical twins. We're actually Carleton University graduates. We did their journalism program, graduated 2017, and decided that there weren't any opportunities for us to work together as women in sports. So we made our own. So we launched our own sports media company called Time Out with the Twins. And we're recently connected and have been supporting each other. And this was the first event we could make it out to.
And they're on Twitter.
Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. You guys came from Ottawa, right? Yes. See?
Hi, my name is Kyla Bolden. I run one company, which is a company that teaches kids how to code. It's based in Toronto. It's about 5 years old, and WizKid Coding, sorry, it's called WizKid Coding, and now it's moved to franchising, so we have locations in other areas and countries. And then I have another company that we started last year, which is an esports company, and it's for youth esports. So we work with provinces and organizations to create youth esports leagues. It's called WizEsports. So yeah, it's me.
Awesome. I like it.
My name is Caitlin. I'm coming from Brock University. My interest in the girls and women's sport area, it started off me being in that program. I'm in a sport management program at Brock. And as I'm sure it's not surprising to hear, unfortunately, the gender ratio in that program is not 50-50. So me being in now 4 years in the program, noticing a lot in classes that I either felt like the female students in the class wouldn't raise their hands to ask questions if there was a speaker in the class. If it was a 3-on-3 basketball tournament happening in the school, I noticed that there wasn't as much appeal to the female students to go to those events. Networking events, same thing, like the turnout, guys to girls, obviously it wasn't equal. So that's kind of how I learned about this, and actually She's4Sports was my first women in sports events that I attended. And since then I've just heard about more, I've looked up more, attended more. I've grown my confidence to attend more and network at them. And ideally after I want to start my own organization. So I'm interested in entrepreneurship. I have a big interest, it's called gender marking in sports. I have an interest kind of in that and a very big curiosity for that. Yeah. So how I first heard about it, for example, there's the Women's World Cup, and then there's the, so FIFA, right? And then there's the FIFA World Cup. And when I first heard that, I was like, there's no way that that's how they're both titled. So it would be something where, say, you would say like a female athlete, but then, and you're marking that as it's a female and like in front of the word. But for if it's say a male athlete or like a men's professional league, a male game, it'll be say just NCAA March Madness, and then the comparison is NCAA Women's March Madness or whatever, right? So, and when I first heard about that, I didn't really know how to kind of articulate it and kind of say this does not sound right, and it kind of sounds weird that they're named those two different ways. So it was a professor I spoke with at Brock, and she told me about gender marking. And I know too, for me personally, like when I talk to people, I make it very, for example, I volunteered for a high school, the boys football team. So I make it very kind of clear that yes, there only was a boys football team in high school, but girls play football too. And just I try to be a bit more considerate and aware of how I'm talking about women's and men's sports by, if I'm saying boys football team, I'm saying that instead of I volunteered for the football team in high school kind of thing. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nora Popal. I'm a political science student at the University of Toronto. I got into sports I've been watching sports since I was a kid. I've been playing sports since I was a kid also, but that ended in high school. Recently, I got into sports writing. I've done a couple of TFC games, some Raptors things, Raptors 905. Oh yeah, Barn Burner. I'm here on behalf of Barn Burner. That's who I write for. Hopefully, I love coming to She's4Sports events. This is my third one. I love learning things from panels of women who they mentioned on several panels that they haven't had any females to look up to. So having them there to pave the way for someone like me is very important. And I love coming to these events and
My name's Kim McMullen. I work in digital for The Source, the electronics retailer that you probably know as Radio Shack. Oh, hi. Yeah. Okay. It's really exciting. Usually we have to explain that it's old Radio Shack. That's great. So I've worked with just about every digital channel that we have at The Source, but I've kind of leveled off a little bit. I've hit the specialist level, and there isn't really much room to grow beyond that. And when I was growing up, super into sports, but didn't really see much opportunity for working in that area. But now, in perhaps in my mid-30s or so, starting to think that might be a good move now that I've hit the spot where it's time to see maybe about something else. So with the skill set that I've built, I think, being able to see what you women have accomplished is really incredible. And I think this is my third event now as well. And it's super inspiring, and I appreciate it so much. So you've all got me thinking and dreaming and hopefully networking soon in that too. Coming from a bit of a smaller town, it's Barrie, it's not that small, but not as much opportunity in those areas. So trying to, figure out what space I can kind of carve out for myself and who I can be helpful to and all of that. So, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Nakonechny. I live with and I'm engaged to a woman in sports. I've kind of been a part of their journey and ups and downs. And I think this is a cool event just to get that out in the air and show that there's similar stories to what some of the folks in the room are dealing with. So it's really cool to be out here and see all the people here.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Greer. I work for Canadian Women in Sport, and we're an organization in Canada that works with national and provincial level sport organizations to try and advance gender equity. My background in sport, I'm an artistic swimmer and coach, which makes me feel like I'm trying really hard to sound interesting, but that's really just because I'm super uncoordinated on land. So if I'm in the pool, I look a lot more impressive when I'm participating in sport. So yeah, my connection to supporting women in sport really comes from that and comes from growing up in this environment full of like really incredible women leaders and role models. And that was always just the norm for me. So I want every person to have that experience in sport, to be able to see themselves reflected in it and to feel comfortable and to feel powerful and to feel like it's something that is going to bring lifelong benefit to them. So that's why I do what I do. And I'm a marketing and communications coordinator. I forgot to say that, but that's me.
Hi, my name's Alex Gray. I am the other half of the marketing team at Canadian Women in Sport. So as Greer said, we're an organization focused on building better sport through gender equity. And we work with sports organizations to help with systemic change to improve leadership opportunities or participation opportunities for women and girls. We've been working on it.
Hi, my name is Marina Leo. I'm also from Brazil, so that's really exciting because it's hard to find people from Brazil. No, I know. Yeah, so I came here to Canada to study sports management at Humber because we don't have this program in Brazil. I've played tennis my whole life, and I always knew that it was not like good enough to go professional. So I was like, okay, maybe I can do something with the business part of it. So I came here and I really enjoy it. I don't know what I want to do yet, but maybe something with the Olympic Games because I went to the Rio Olympic Games and I love it. So maybe the Canadian Olympic Committee or like IOC. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it.
Come to She's4Sports events. How else are you going to meet the women in this room? Not even on our panel. Like, look at the synergies there.
Hi, my name's Rachel Lester. I'm also a Humber student with Marina. We're both in the sports management program, and I'm very new to the industry, and I'm basically just here to learn something new and get some insight on professionals in the industry and see from there where I'd like to go or where I see myself fitted best. So that's me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shauna Sumra. I am one of Ainka's best friends.
Sure is. We went to daycare together.
We've come a long way. I have lots of stories, but I won't do that to her.
This is when her mic just goes lower, you know? No, sure.
Ainka's hard work and dedication and passion is really remarkable. And just the fact that we both went together to see many sports games. We knew all the players, we knew the stats, but we didn't see any other women shown like that were like us, that were fans. And there's tons of women that are like this. And the fact that she took this leap of faith and said, you know what, I am going to bring this to the forefront. I'm going to engage with women and show women. And you guys are wonderful. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I'm so like proud to like tell your stories to my 5-year-old daughter. But the fact that she took this and she's curated something so amazing, I'm so proud of her. And I don't come to the events because I'm her best friend. Like I come to the events because just like you, it's interesting. I always learn something, and I get to see women in a space that unfortunately we don't always see them in. So thank you, ladies, and thank you, Ainka. And it's a pleasure as always.
My name is Priyanka, and I'm a student at Ryerson University in the Data Analytics, Predictive Analysis, and Big Data certification. It's a long one. I'm also the tournament manager for Muay Thai Ontario and Muay Thai Canada for about 1.5 years right now. So I'm curious to see how I can fuse data and all the tech with my experience in sports together and learn everyone's story and see how I can grow from that as well. Pretty much that.
Hello, everyone. My name's Hope Blackmore. I'm also from Brock University, like Caitlin, and I'm currently in my final year. So I graduate in April. I came along with Camille, so she's actually my supervisor at the Canadian Olympic Committee. I'm there as one of their social media interns, so it's a really great opportunity to grow, and she's really pushed me to come here, and I'm very thankful for her for that. And it's definitely given me a lot of insight. I am also currently a vice president at our student council at Brock. And one of the things we're really looking to integrate is women in sport event, because like Caitlin touched on, there really is a lack thereof women in sport and representation at Brock specifically. And it is kind of a university that is very prideful of their sport management program. And I think we need to maybe empower a little bit more women that come out of it. So I'm here to support. And yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing. It was awesome.
So my name is Anne Marie. I actually don't work in the sporting industry, but I do have a love for it. I did graduate with, I have a physiotherapy degree. I've been in sports all my life. I continue to do more in sports. I'm trying to learn hockey right now and stuff like that. So at this point, I do want to try to contribute back, but I'm just trying to find the avenue to do so. So I do like just coming to these events just to learn. Like I must say I'm not a media person, but I still think that you guys have wonderful stories to tell and for us to learn. So yeah, this is my second event and learning each time.
Thank you. Hi, guys. My name is Angela. I'm a sports and hockey lover. I went to school for marketing and did my post certificate in sports marketing. I'm currently at the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm an administrator and supervisor there, so I really get to see all the different aspects at the Hall of Fame. So I help out in financing, marketing, the museum, and special events.
I'm Maria Tassoni. I also work at the Hockey Hall of Fame. I do digital and social media there. I also sometimes help out with the International Ice Hockey Federation social media for some tournaments. And my one piece of advice to everybody here, I know there are some people who are starting out. I know sometimes it sucks to volunteer and to not be paid and things, but the reason why I moved in, I was in the same like PR marketing, but in nonprofits, in like health and advocacy type things. Volunteering changed my life. I volunteered for the team that Jessica played for, the Markham Thunder, for 4 years. And even though, you know, sometimes it was long hours, there was, you know, a little money here and there, sometimes a little kickback. Like we're talking like $100, so like don't get too excited. But sometimes, you know, there are opportunities to do bigger things and your work will go noticed. And you'll also be able to network through that. So that's how I also got involved with the IIHF, through someone who I met through working with the Markham Thunder. So that's just my little thing for everyone. Even though sometimes it sucks, it can be really beneficial and change your life.
Hi, my name's Robin. I'm just here. It's inspiring seeing the panel. I've been played a lot of sports growing up, but when I took finance at school, but spent my career in finance, but it's amazing that a lot of the stories are it's not the most diverse field that I spent all my years in. So, you know, it's very similar. It has evolved to become more diverse. Like there's all the different organizations that are helping to assist because it's very similar. You need the mentors and mentees and everything. So it's inspiring to hear your message that it's not just sports or it's just not finance. It's unfortunately it's a lot of different places. So, but you know, a lot of people are out there helping to pull everyone up to to be involved, which is promising. So thank you.
I feel like a bit of an imposter here, but I'm just a phys ed teacher. Now I teach ESL as well. But my friend Robin here, we've been friends since grade school as well. And our friend network, we've always been involved in sports. We still are. And all of my friends, I'm in a really traditional role as a teacher. They're all, I don't know where it came from, but I think being in sport, they're all in sort of non-traditional sport jobs like in finance and engineering and actually 3 engineers and an accountant. So I think sport did that for us. And I think it's really important that women, like whether it's tech or just being in sports is so important because it's done so much for us. And that's my sort of passions to keep girls in sport and women in sport. Like we don't have to stop at high school or university. We can keep doing it because we are role models, whether we're, you know, an old person like me who's still doing stuff or even to a young person. So sport gives you the confidence. And thank you for sharing. It was really amazing. And I learned lots.
Hi everyone, I'm Alyssa Oreo. I work at beam.gg with Arwina. So I got hooked into sports, particularly badminton, because my brother has no one to play with. And several years ago, I got hooked into esport, and again, because of my brother. And last year, I met Arwina at a viewing event, which is the Dota 2 championship. And yeah, I'm glad she offered me the job and the opportunity to be in this industry.
Hi, I'm Craig. I am a systems administrator at a communication services company called Pragmatic Conferencing. That's where April used to work at one point. And
I don't talk about
we're
that
friends. It's been great watching April follow her passions and succeed so much. And I just love sport. So here we are.
Hi, my name is Karen, and this is my first She's4Sports event. I found about it through Arwina, and all of you guys were really inspiring. I really enjoyed listening to your stories. So actually, it's just funny because I had my book and I didn't think I would get a chance to promote it, but I guess since I'm here, I co-authored a book.
I was like,
called,
do it.
Called Fitness to Freedom, which is available at Chapters and Indigo online. And it's about stories, women who have backgrounds in fitness, who played sports, just to help overcome obstacles. I'm not directly in sports, but I share my story. I'm a fitness instructor at Good Life, so I teach body pump and body attack. So again, like a lot of the exercise we do for training and to improve our performance in sports. And then I'm also the host of the Bacon Bits and Bites podcast. So it's bites with a Y because we talk a lot about tech. And actually, Arwina is going to be in an upcoming episode. So I'm always looking for people to interview. If you have a business, a tech-related business, you feel you have something to share, because I love sharing other people's stories, let me know. It's Bacon Bits and N. So the letter N, Bites, BYTES on social media.
I'm hungry now. Thank you. Hungry for knowledge and hungry for bacon.
Hi, my name's Melanie Yu. I was actually on the first panel that INCA ever hosted. I actually looked it up. It was 3 years ago.
She was on the first panel.
Yeah, it was called Women on the Rise in Sports. I was a U of T student, alum now. I was the first female president of the sports business group there. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's how we connected. And I've been volunteering ever since.
My name is Ella. I'm a second year in sport media here at Ryerson. Natasha and I have a radio show with a couple of other friends all about women in sports called Girls Got Game. And I just recently started working with Bar Down, which is like a section of TSN. And I kind of just do everything they don't want to do. So when everyone was kind of talking about, just get your foot in the door and get your name out there, that's exactly what I'm doing. Just kind of offering, like, you want me to write a transcript for the broken fingers? Sure, I'll do that. But anything you have to do. So that was very inspiring to hear what you guys had to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm from BC, which is like a big part of who I am. I used to be a high performance athlete, and when I lost my scholarships to the States because due to an injury, I had to think, like, what do I want to do for the next 4 years of my life? And the only thing that I could really think of was something involved with sports. So that's what led me here to Ryerson to do the sport media program, and I work with Laurel Walzak with the GXS team that co-partnered this event. And for me in sports, a really big thing was when I used to fence. I was a fencer. When I used to fence, I was so used to being the only girl in the room or in the building or at the entire competition or the only female ref. Like, you were just always in the minority. So that's why I'm here, and that's what I want to change. And She's4Sports and GXS helps with that.
Thank you so much for your questions, your insights. Obviously, thanks for the panel. Thanks to Laurel, for this partnership. So I do appreciate you guys taking the time to come today. And as I said, stay tuned for more of these events and more She's4Sports activities where we're going to continue to talk about gender diversity, amplify the voices of women, and also support the next generation or young people who want to get into sports.